You're now locked onto the Pulse Radio Show with Marcus Myers, X-Tina, and Ken Pyle. And on the 1 and 2s, Big Red the DJ. It's the Pulse Radio Show, baby. Believe that.
Researching some sense. He don't talk the talk. Where's Christina?
He walks the walk.
Christina even here to make that little joke with me.
Yeah, Christina walking. Finally, what we can do is talking. Okay, so
Sure.
Well, we have a very special guest, and I wanted to bring him on because we had a conversation about finances a while ago, and this was with Paul Ashby.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. And it's coming up to Christmas, and economic times, etc. It calls for more conversation about finances, and we brought the Barbadian Jeff Bezos, I should say. We have the CEO of Cave Shepherd & Company. We have Mr. John Williams.
Good evening.
Evening. And you're the best person to talk about finances with because, you're at the top. When it comes to finances, retail, anything, you're at the top of it all. You see how the ebbs and flows of money and everything. So you're the best person to call.
Well, I don't know if I'm the best, but especially after the last crowd over here, and
Yeah.
I was born around the middle of the last century, so I've been around a long time. So I don't know if I'm the best, but
That's like
quite a bit of longevity.
That's like Great Depression times or what?
Not quite, but not far off.
All right. Well, okay. What I wanted to start with was people in my age group, right? I would say that we are now in a space where we are gaining our own footing. Acquiring our own income, but at the same time we have other passions and dreams, and we want to start our small business and not work for anybody, etc. And I wanted to ask you about laying out your money in a way that you can still pay yourself, pay the business, and save, etc. If you had to give somebody some tips, what tips would you give them?
Well, I think it varies a lot as to whether you're talking about running your own business, and again, whether that is your only source of income. A lot of people not interested in running their own business. They're interested in working, and therefore the formula for them is quite different because their budget, they set aside a certain amount. They can put that savings, eventually towards a mortgage and other investments and so on. You then get the hybrids, persons who are working, but also starting up their own businesses. Right. And I think a lot of, most people probably do that because it gives you the level of assurance for your regular expenditure, whether that's rent, food, entertainment, whatever, from your regular job. But then you're doing something on the side and hopefully growing it into something. The biggest challenge is where you're jumping right into it, where you are actually going to be going straight in, and that business has got to support you. And I would tell you that I've never done that. I've always worked for either companies, for firms, professional firms, and so on. But for persons who jump straight into it, there really isn't much saving. All the money that they have is plowed right back into their business,
But do you believe in jumping right in though, or do you believe in having like a cohesive switch over, which would be like, you're working for somebody and then you acquire enough income so it's not a big risk when you actually do immerse yourself?
I think it depends on the nature of the job. If you are writing apps, if you're doing animation, if you're doing stuff like that, you can do that on an evening, weekend, and still hold down a regular job.
Right.
If the nature of your business that you want to go into is running a bar, or doing servicing pools, or in the construction or anything like that, you'll not be able to hold down a job and do that. So it really depends on the nature of the business. Absolutely, the safer way is to be able to kind of do the business as a side while you're doing your job. But there are a lot of people just not cut out for that. They want to jump right in.
Right. Another thing that I hear about with a lot of people in their 20s is they want to make their first investment, whether it's bonds and all this other stuff. And I wanted to know from you, if somebody wanted to make their first investment, what's the best way to make an investment that is going to pay off in the end?
in these days in particular as difficult. A couple of rules of thumb though. I would say big difference, and you probably heard it from Paul Ashby when he was here, between saving and investing. Saving is money you put on a bank account, but you can go and get any time at all. And therefore there's always a temptation to say, I just about to go on the trip. It's Christmas time. a lot of crop over time, a lot of parties or whatever it is. That money comes off. That's saving.
Right.
Investing is different. Investing is actually going and actually purchasing something or putting your money into something that you can't easily pick it up and go and convert it into spending. I am a big believer in investing rather than saving. I think you can save for something. So if you're saving up for a holiday, if you're saving up for something, that's saving. But in the longer term, investing. And my rule of thumb is whether it's shares, whether it's in property or whatever it is go for something that you can't go and grab hold of quickly to satisfy a short-term desire to spend it.
My biggest thing is, how much do I save? Like, some people have this rule about save 10% of what it is that you accumulate. Then it would be like 40%. I heard somebody else say that. But I kind of find, sometimes it is put down wherever I got. So they got times where I get a whole check and I just say, look, I want to see that. I'd rather start first before I even, use that money. But do you have a rule of thumb for that?
No, I don't have a rule of thumb, and I think there are different people, as you said. A lot of people that have different rules and so on. I would be amazed and impressed to find the person who can put aside 40%, to be honest with you.
Especially now.
But having said that, I have, in my years, I've seen people who are on very, relatively modest salaries, maybe, $2,000 a month, who put aside every month. And I've seen equally persons who are on $10,000 a month that are always broke. Your expenditure, can expand to fill all the money that you receive. So it's more a discipline than it is an amount. What I would say to you, and I think it's in your earlier life, and particularly, it's difficult if you're single. I mean, all I heard about earlier was fun, and that's great, because that's what being young is about. But maybe as you start to settle down, whether you have kids, whether you're married, or you're just settling down by yourself and just thinking, look, you know what, I can't party the same way I did 10 years ago. I think the big thing is to do some budgeting. I think if you don't have that budgeting, and so with that, you start off and say, what's my rent? What's my food? How much am I putting aside for entertainment? How much is the car insurance? What is the other things? And then with that, you come up, and if that number is greater than your salary, you've got some issues. If it's less than your salary, then I think that really is the amount you can put aside. So whether that represents 5% or 15%, I would say it does, but it is to try your best to keep to that discipline and be putting aside. And sometimes the way that people have discipline is actually to commit themselves to something, and therefore having to put in. So if there's a monthly deduction that's coming out of your salary and going into a mutual fund, then when you get your check in the hand, that's gone already. And so it depends how much discipline you have.
But I want to ask you in your young years, because I mean, everybody goes through a phase where they don't have enough discipline when it comes to money.
Yeah.
And I want to know, do you have any major financial regrets? I don't say marriage. I'm
no, I wouldn't say that. You can always look back and say, boy, I wish I hadn't done that. Or boy, I wish I'd done that. Right? So, but you then have to look and say, well, what did what did you do? So it's, and it's never, ever too late. So right now when when you say to somebody, well, actually, when we bought our plot of land, we actually paid 50 cents a square foot. They go wild, right? But the reality is that at the time for what it was, that was what it was. And then somebody can tell you, well, when I bought it was $5, but now it's more. So I would say to you that just be when you're and this goes back to investing, is just have some of the money that you set aside for your entertainment and enjoyment. You're not worried once it's gone, it's gone. But really, be looking to put aside some money in the form of investment. And for most people, that investment is probably a house. That's what it's going to mainly be. But if you have the discipline, if you're fortunate, if your own business or whatever does well, then it may be more than that. Yeah. You may have a portfolio of shares. You may have a rental property and so on. But it's more about just not finding yourself at 50 and you're still renting, you haven't put aside, you had a whale of a time, but if you're reasonable health, you got some, you better start saving fast at that point.
A lot of people have the inkling to rent just to get the freedom and to be away from fathers. And
that's not even worth it. The people who have moved out told me do not.
Yeah.
So
I wouldn't tell you though. I wouldn't tell you that though.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't tell you.
That's
why you say so?
Because what you said is the freedom. Yeah.
So the freedom is actually worth the value.
Of course it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that too that I mean certainly when I was after university started work and then got married, we were renting to start with because you don't have the deposit for mortgage and so on. But going back to the point earlier, one of the disciplines of getting a mortgage is that the bank makes sure that comes out of your bank account every month before anything else. So the point at which you can reasonably afford to get on the mortgage, that I would say do it. You'll never be able to afford exactly what you want as the house, and so because at an age of 30, you're not going to be able to afford what you could afford at 45. But it's almost like waiting for the latest Apple phone or iPhone or what it is. If you wait for the latest model, you just never buy one because you're always waiting for the next one, which is just about to come out.
Yeah.
You made a good point, and it makes me wonder, do you think, and you, with the job that you have, you really see how people spend? You think baiters spend too much money?
I don't, I don't think they save enough. You flip it. And so, yes, I suppose by extension we spend too much. I do think that there's the question of how you spend it is really, it's not so much spending money is how you're spending it. And I know in our earlier chats, you talked, for example, credit card, and we have Cave Shepherd has the biggest, in terms of greatest number of credit cards based in the island. Right. But I'm a firm believer that you're using credit cards as for the convenience of it. But it really, and sometimes you need it to tide you over a period of time. Right. But as a form of long-term financing, absolutely not.
Yeah.
So what is your alternative? Would it just be the normal debit?
Yeah. I mean, where you can, you're trying to spend, especially again, if you're talking day-to-day expenditures. I would say that I would be using your debit card for day-to-day expenditures. And some people say, I use my credit card because I get the points and so on. That's great if you have the discipline to settle it in full at the end of the month. But and also to know how much you have there, because when you're using a debit card, if there's no money in bank account, nothing's coming out. Right? So, but the credit card will all, or not always, but more or less will always have a bit more. So I would say be just try and be very disciplined with your credit card and generally, as I said, going back to budgeting and putting aside. And
I know a lady too that puts aside, like, she got like a wad of cash under her bed, and she says that she don't keep it away for everybody. That's her cash for whatever she needs, and whether throughout the week, whatever. But I said something about that seems a bit risky though.
Yeah, it certainly wouldn't be my first choice. You get nervous every time a fire truck goes by. The thing with that, that is somebody who has a tremendous discipline to put aside money and not touch it. Yeah. For most persons, if you look in your wallet and you have $4,000 in there, you're thinking, I can afford stuff, right? So the idea of putting it on your bed, putting it in a drawer or something like that is not wrong, but it just doesn't suit most of us.
But I would say, honestly, I was thinking about doing it because there's a lot of talk now about banks and bank fees. right? I guess, but people don't understand bank fees, right? And I was talking to somebody that does. I guess we won't really get it too deep into that, but people are saying that, you know, because of the bank fees and, you know, what people are talking about, etc., that they're saying to find other alternatives. But I'm not sure. I think that putting your money in the bank is still worth it regardless. What do you think?
Well, again, I'm not a big fan of saving for other than for specific things. So I'm a fan of investing. So, but the reality is that it's difficult to operate in the real world without a bank account. But what the banks are doing are really trying to push you towards electronic means. So, you know, they're charging for cash and checks for going in and doing stuff. They're trying to get people out of their lines and trying to do electronic banking and so on. Right. So I think you have to have a bank account. For most people, you can say bank, credit union, or so on, but that's just the nature of how you're going to operate is with a bank account. You know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know, before you leave us, I do want you to just say one thing, one general rule, or whether it's something that we can think about for anybody in their 20s, you know, from the 21 to 30, the people that are like in their first job, second job, they're not accumulating wealth. What would you say?
I wouldn't you really shouldn't be shouldn't. It's difficult when you're in 20s and 30s to be accumulating wealth. Okay?
Man, but the thing is,
but you can be putting aside money and investing. Okay. And I'm making a distinction there. We
would define wealth differently.
Okay. But I would say to you, look at it in the context of a couple of things. One is, the best way to have money above your day-to-day expenses, whether that's a mortgage payment, whether that's food, whether that's gas bills and so on, is to be earning more. So you at the end, if you are not moving forward in your job, if you aren't doing the best to try and get either promoted, or if you aren't in your own business and growing it, then you're always going to be stymied, because it doesn't matter how good you are at saving. You know, if your salary isn't going up, then you're going to be struggling. So the best investment really is in yourself. I know that sounds awfully trite, but the best investment in yourself, not just when you're at school and education, but then when you're in the workforce. And I don't think there's a better example of that. And this evening is sponsored by Broad Street Men's. And if you would like somebody really who could tell you about investing in themselves, is Evan's husband. You know, in terms of his life story is an amazing tribute to kind of just having the right attitude, working hard, and that. It's not so much where you start off, it's where you end off.
Where you end off. You see that we've got some real hardships, though. Young people, if you were in our generation now, you could understand the things that we've got to go through, the hurdles and obstacles we've got to go through, because the economic climate is so different.
It is absolutely tougher now than when I was 20 or 30.
So how you can help us then? You can give me something?
Absolutely.
I actually was gonna make that point when you were talking about, you say, when you're looking, you see for Grantley's, you know, you have money to spend, and I'm like, that can literally go in a Saturday. Like just getting groceries, putting in gas, like in literally half hour, you can spend $400. In these times.
Absolutely. And the thing is, if you spend on groceries and gas, that's all right.
And that's what I have to tell myself.
It's when it goes, and you don't remember next morning. And you don't remember next morning where that's where the challenge is.
I actually had to tell myself, okay, well, at least I was able to put gas in the car and get the stuff I needed, but it still hurts that you spent like hundreds of dollars in 30 minutes.
Well, Mr. Husband,
I've not reached there yet.
Mr. Husband, if you listen right now, shout out to you. John, thanks for coming through.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for giving us your wisdom. You know, because I mean, you're in a different demographic to us, right? And you have went through some things, right? So you're giving us what you've learned, and you're going to learn from your experiences, so we don't go make any mistakes that you made.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.